What are sets in JavaScript and how they are different from arrays? Set is a collection of unique values. So this is similar to array, just it contains unique values. So this is a syntax for creating a new set. I store it in a variable set, and now let's log to the console the set to see how it looks like. So you see that this is a set, and then in curly braces you see the size of the set. So size shows how many elements a set contains. And also inside of the constructor set we can pass one parameter, which is an array of values. So for example, let's create a new array, and now let's add several numbers. So for example 1 and 2. And now you see that this array have been converted to the set with values 1 and 2. But for now I remove this array from the constructor set. And now let's compare the set to the array. So at first I create an empty array and then I log it to the console. And now between this array and the log, let's add new elements. So for example, for adding elements to the end of the array, we can use the push method. And now you see that our array contains values 1, 2 and 2. Now let's do the same, but with the set. If you write the set then dot, you will see all the methods that we can call for set. The first method is add, and this is the same method as push for arrays, so it adds an element to the end of the set. And now you see the first difference. So you see that inside of the set we have only two values, which is 1 and 2. And this is because set contains only unique values. So if we add a repetitive value inside of the set, it will not be added. Now let's look how to remove elements from the set. So at first let's remove them from the array. For arrays we have many different methods. For example, we can remove the element from the beginning of the array. For that I can call .shift method. Then if I want to remove the element from the end of the array, I can call the pop method. And also in the array, we can remove elements from the middle of the array. So for example, let's add more different values. So now you see that I have an array with 3 values, 2, 2 and 3. And now let's remove the second value, which is 2. With arrays, we have a method splice, and one of the functions of this method is to remove elements from the middle of the array. So the first parameter that we should pass is the index of the element that we want to remove. This number 2 is on the second position, but arrays are 0 based, so it means that the index of this number is 1. And then the second parameter is the delete count. So with the method splice, we can remove more than one element. So for example, if I write 1, you will see that the only one number have been removed. For example, if I write 2, you will see that the only one number remains in the array. So but now about sets. So set contains only unique values, and it means that we can remove the elements based on the value, not based on the index. Set has a method delete where we can pass a value that we want to remove. For example, if I want to remove the number 2, I will pass this value, and now you see that we have only the number 1. And in the same way, if I want to remove the number 1, I will pass this value, so you see that this value have been removed. And for example, if I pass a value like 3, so we know that it doesn't exist in our set, you will see that this function doesn't influence our set at all. But if you hover over the delete, you will see that it contains also a return statement, and you will see that it returns true if an element in the set existed and has been removed, or false if the element does not exist. So for example, I can create a variable isDeleted, and then let's log it to the console. And now you see that if I pass the value 3, after the set, we see false. But if I pass the value 2 that exists in our set, it has been deleted successfully, and you see that isDeleted variable is equal to true. And also we have the second method that removes all items inside of the set. If I call the set.clear method, you will see that our set have been cleaned and now we have an empty set. Now what if we want to check that a certain value exists in the set or an array? So at first, let's check how it works with arrays. And for that, in the array, we have the method includes. So now you see that we have 5 elements in our array. And now we want to check that the value 3 exists in this array. So I can write array.includes, and here I can pass the value that I want to check. So let's pass 3. And now let's also store this result into a variable, and then let's log it to the console. So, and after the array, we see the value true, which means that the value 3 exists in this array. So let's also check the value 5. And now you see that this value doesn't exist in our array, so we have false in the console. So now you see that inside of the set we have 4 values. And now let's check that if we have the value 4 in the set. So for that, I use the method has, and then I will store this value in the variable and log it to the console. And now you see that the number 4 exists in our set, so we have the value true. Let's also check the value 3. So the value 3 doesn't exist in our set, and this is the reason why we see false. So you might think that both these functions work absolutely the same, but here's one important difference. So imagine that you have an array with million elements. In the worst case, array will need 1 million iterations to find the right element with the method includes. And this is because includes methods work the same as a for loop, so it goes through each value from the array. But set.hash method can find the value immediately. So even if we have 1 million elements inside of the set, it always knows where this value is located, so it can find it immediately. But now about the main disadvantage, so why sets are not as popular as arrays. So and this is because we can't change values in the middle of the set. So as you see, we can add values only to the end of the set, and then we can remove them based on the value. But what if I want to change the values based on the index? So we can't access our elements based on the index. So for example, if I would try to get the first element from the set by using square brackets and then writing 0, which is the index of the first element, you will see undefined in the console. So you can't get elements based on the index. At the same time, in the array, if I add the same square brackets, we will get the first value from this array. Also, I can pass whatever index I want. So for example, the index 4. And now you see the 5th element from our array. So let's sum up when you can use sets instead of arrays. Set is a collection of unique values. When you need to remove repetitive values, you can easily use set. As you saw in this example, if we add the same value several times into the set, it will not affect the values inside of the set. And also, if you have many values and you want to find a specific value very fast, you can use sets, because .has method is much more efficient than includes method of arrays. But very often we want to access values by a specific index, and in this case you can use only arrays. Thanks for watching.